Welcome back, guys. I'm Brittany Hughes. Thanks for tuning in. So last Sunday, while NFL players were getting all kinds of media attention for kneeling on a football field, a Sudanese immigrant named Emmanuel Sampson walked into a church in Tennessee and opened fire. He killed a 39-year-old mother of two and wounded 6 others. He was finally stopped when a 22-year-old man grabbed a hold of him and refused to let go, despite getting pistol whipped in the face. The whole thing ended when Sampson shot himself in what appears to have been an accident. The young man then went to his car, got his legally owned firearm, which he had a license to carry, and stood guard over Sampson until the cops showed up. Raise your hand if you live outside of Nashville and your news channel reported on this story for more than about 2 seconds, or frankly, at all. I could tell you half a dozen teams and just as many individual football players who got down on one knee during a football game last Sunday because it was all over the news. I learned about what happened in that Tennessee church from a tweet. I actually had to go track down the details because nobody was talking about it. It's now Wednesday, and it's all been shoved under the rug save for a few scattered broadcasts, wedged in between panels of experts talking about how brave Colin Kaepernick is. So does anybody remember what happened when a white dude walked into a black church and shot it up? Lord, we heard about that for weeks. Seriously, weeks. We had meetings, members of Congress lost their minds, flags got ripped down, half the South got called racist. Amazon yanked the Confederate flag even though it didn't really have anything to do with what had happened. But we went around and around for days. The story even got dredged up as a way to blame Trump for racism, even though it happened well before he was ever even a candidate. Dylan Roof somehow became the poster child for every white Southern person who owns a gun. But a black immigrant walks into a church in a southern state, kills a white lady, hurts half a dozen others, and gets stopped by a 22-year-old with a concealed carry permit, and we can't talk about that. Oh no. It doesn't fit the narrative. It flies directly in the face of the race-baiting, society-dividing, fear-mongering propaganda that we are being force-fed every single day. Now, my point here is not to try to justify white violence by pointing out a single case of black violence. On the contrary, frankly, I don't care whether the guy who walked into that church and opened fire was black. He'd still be a violent piece of trash if he were white, yellow, purple, or lime green, whatever. At the end of the day, I also don't really care that he was an immigrant. He was legal. He'd been here since he was a kid. We couldn't have known he'd turn into a murderous pile of garbage. But you can bet that the media cared. They cared that his profile didn't line up with the violent white supremacist picture of America that they have been desperately trying to paint. Their focus was on NFL players taking a knee against some perceived systemic racial injustice, and they could not mess up that image with a story about a black guy killing a white lady. Oh no. How long are we going to let this go on? 2 years ago, a white guy walked into a church and shot up a bunch of people. It was evil. Last Sunday, a black guy walked into a church and shot up a bunch of people. It was evil. Because here's the truth about evil. It doesn't have a color. And frankly, it doesn't care what color its victims are. And for that matter, neither does racism or bigotry. The longer we let the media churn the waters with division, painting this false narrative that all people of one color are victims while all people of another color are oppressors, by cherry-picking what stories they'll focus on and which ones they'll ignore, the more we soak our brains in this cesspool of selective information and discriminatory hate that they promote for ratings, the more the real evil wins, and the more we lose. A guy walked into a church and committed an act of evil, and a good man protected his neighbors. That should have been the story this week, plain and simple. And frankly, as a reporter, I'm sorry that it wasn't. That's all for now, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Leave your comments below, and I'll see you back here next time.